Hi my friends, let's continue this very important playlist. And you know that most of us are really fed up with such a popular English word as very. So let's learn 150 collocations in English which we can use instead of this word. So to be more precise, let me give an example. So you see the sentence, he's a very successful businessman. And the fact is that more advanced students tend to use more advanced vocabulary. It goes without saying. So the question is, what word or what words can be used instead of these words? Alright, so he's maybe a really successful, or he's a very successful. What else can be used here? Okay, I'll give you some natural English collocations, or as they also can be called, expressions. Look, highly successful. Remember this collocation, highly successful. He's a very, alright, but it's, for elementary students, we need to say it like this. He's a highly successful businessman. It means that he is so successful. It sounds stronger. He is a highly successful businessman. He is a highly successful businessman. Alright, let's have a look at the second sentence. It really helped him to become very successful in this area. You see, these two words, very successful. Let's get rid of this word very. So, it will be natural to say, to become highly successful. To become highly successful. In addition to it, we can also use an inversion here. It has already been studied in the previous course, or part of the course, B2. You see, how will you say it using an inversion? So we say did instead of really. In other words, we replace the word really with the word did. It did. It did, and then the verb, it did help him to become highly successful in this area. If you compare these two sentences, the second one and the first one, we see a great difference. So it did help him to become highly successful in this area. If you start using these collocations, definitely you'll sound like an advanced English speaker. And although we see that this level is called C1, in fact, it's for C1 and for C2 students as well. So it's both for C1 and C2 students. And that's great, really. I have to say that's great, and you have to agree with it. Collocations. So, no, we aren't going to use this word any longer, you see, very. So highly successful. He's a highly successful businessman. It did help him to become highly successful in this area. Next, let's have a look at the following sentences. The first one is, I don't really think that it will ever happen. How can we make it sound more advanced? Let's look at the first part of the sentence. You see, I don't really think. It means that the chances that it will happen are very small. In other words, it's very unlikely. It's when the chances are very small. It's very unlikely that it will ever happen. But we try to get rid of this word very. What can be used instead? It's, look, it's highly unlikely. Remember this expression, highly unlikely. So it will be, it's highly unlikely that it will ever happen. It's up to you. You can use contractions, and if so, it will be, it will ever happen. It's highly unlikely that it will ever happen. It's highly unlikely that it will ever happen. I don't really think that they'll pay attention to it. So we see a very similar situation. I don't really think. So we can think about the probability of this possible action, and we see that the chances are really so small, so it's highly unlikely. Yeah, we can use the same expression here. It will be, it's highly likely that they'll pay attention to it. I doubt that it will really happen. It's highly unlikely that they'll pay attention to it. Let's revise it. So you see, highly unlikely. It's highly unlikely that it will ever happen. It's highly unlikely that they'll pay attention to it. So if we look at this level, I mean the level C1, it's mostly about vocabulary. You just need to know these expressions to sound like an advanced, like a confident, advanced English speaker. And it's enough for the level C1 and C2 as well. So, look, I really recommend it. I really recommend it. Okay, actually it's the same story or almost the same story. So you need to use highly recommend. Well, strongly recommend is also possible. So highly recommend or strongly recommend, and we'll look at this lesson. We're working, with different expressions with highly. So let's use this expression, highly recommend. So it will be, I highly recommend it. I highly recommend it. It means that I really like it. I like it so much. I highly recommend it. I highly recommend it. I really recommend visiting this place. Right, so very or really. These are very simple words. So it will be, I highly recommend visiting this place. And remember the structure. Recommend doing something. I highly recommend visiting this place. It means that this place is really worth visiting. So maybe it's an amazing place. I highly recommend visiting this place. Good. Highly recommend. I highly recommend it. I highly recommend visiting this place. It's very unusual. The expression is highly unusual, as you might have already guessed. Highly unusual. So, what can we say instead of it's very unusual, or instead of it's very strange? It will be it's highly unusual. It's highly unusual. It's highly unusual. It's a very unusual way of dealing with this problem. Look, we see the same word again and again, and most of us are really fed up with it. No problem. Let's replace this word with the word highly. So it will be, it's a highly unusual way of dealing with this problem. It's a highly unusual way of dealing with this problem. That's all right. Highly unusual. It's highly unusual. It's a highly unusual way of dealing with this problem. It's a very profitable company. Or it's a very profitable business. So we can use highly profitable. It will be, it's a, right? It's a highly profitable company, or it's a highly successful company, or it's a highly profitable company if we are talking about the profit. How much money it can generate, or how much money it generates. It's a very profitable business. It'll be it's a highly. Right. It's a highly profitable business. It's a highly profitable business. Highly profitable. It's a highly profitable company. It's a highly profitable business. You see, it's a very difficult issue. How can we change this sentence to sound more advanced? For example, if it means that there are so many things which aren't clear, you can use the word controversial. And the correct expression will be highly controversial. It means that if it's full of controversy. It's full of controversy. When there are so many things aren't clear. So, it will be it's a highly controversial issue. It's a highly controversial issue. It was a very difficult issue. If we try to change it, it can be it was a highly controversial issue. It was a highly controversial issue. Highly controversial, full of controversy. It's a highly controversial issue. It was a highly controversial issue. He is a very educated person, but he lacks some life experience. So we see this word very again. And the phrase, the correct phrase is highly educated. Highly educated. So, he is a highly educated person, but he lacks some life experience. He is a highly educated person, but he lacks some life experience. Let's have a look, or let's look at the second sentence. He is considered to be a very educated person. So it can be with to be or without to be. He is considered a very educated person, or he is considered to be a very educated person. You see, a very educated person. So let's replace this expression with the expression highly educated. He is considered to be a highly educated person. Highly educated. He is a highly educated person, but he lacks some life experience. He is considered to be a highly educated person. The company has very trained staff. You need to know the expression highly trained. So we can transform the sentence and it will sound the company has highly trained staff, like highly educated. So highly plus an adjective. Highly trained staff or personnel. The company has highly trained staff. They have professional and very trained personnel. So we can use staff or personnel. It's more or less the same. They have professional and highly trained personnel. They have professional and highly trained personnel. Highly trained. The company has highly trained staff. They have professional and highly trained personnel. I'm looking for a very well-paid job. However, we can say it, in one word. Look, highly paid. Highly paid. It will be, I'm looking for a highly paid job. I'm looking for a highly paid job. Let's have a look at the second sentence. I'd like to find a very well-paid job. I'd like to find a highly paid job. I'd like to find a highly paid job. Highly paid. I'm looking for a highly paid job. I'd like to find a highly paid job. It's a very competitive market. It means that there is lots of competition here. Very competitive or highly competitive. It's a highly competitive market. It's a highly competitive market. It's a highly competitive market. They do business in a very competitive niche or area or also field. They do business in a highly competitive niche. They do business in a highly competitive niche. Highly competitive. It's a highly competitive market. They do business in a highly competitive niche. I'm really sorry about it. Alright, we aren't going to use, the word highly all the time because it isn't possible. Okay, let's have a look at some other collocations, with some other words. Look, terribly sorry. Terribly sorry. And we can say, you are really so sorry. I'm terribly sorry about it. I'm terribly sorry about it. I'm terribly sorry about it. I'm really sorry for coming late. If we are going to strengthen our point, it will be, I'm terribly sorry for coming late. I'm terribly sorry for coming late. Or we can say, for instance, I feel terribly sorry or I'm terribly sorry. It's up to you. Terribly sorry. I'm terribly sorry about it. I'm terribly sorry for coming late. It's so important, or it's really important. It's so important. What word can be used with the word important? To highlight the importance, to strengthen our point, so that we put an emphasis on it. It will be, for instance, it can be, it's vitally important. So it can be, it's hugely important. It's one more possible way of saying it. It's hugely important. But if it's really so important, we can use vitally. It's stronger. It's vitally important. And we are going to use this expression here, vitally important. So it's so important. So it was, it's so important, and it will be, it's vitally important. It's vitally important. So this lesson is vitally important, and I'm not going to stop recording this video despite the repairs on the upper floor. So it's vitally important. I'm not going to stop because I have a very limited amount of time. This issue is so important. Look, this issue is vitally important. We can also say, look, it's of vital importance, or this issue is of vital importance. It's also one more possible scenario. Or, as we see it here, vitally important. It's vitally important. This issue is vitally important. I was very disappointed. If we look at this word disappointed, there is one very common expression among native speakers, and this expression is bitterly disappointed. Bitterly disappointed. I was very disappointed. If you say it, it will be something like A2, and if you say I was bitterly disappointed, so it will sound like C1. I was bitterly disappointed. Let me give you one more example. I was very disappointed by the news. I was bitterly disappointed. It means that I was so disappointed. Maybe there were tears on my eyes, or almost tears on my eyes. I was bitterly disappointed by the news. And as you remember, different prepositions are possible. With this word disappointed, by, at, about, with, So there are different options. Bitterly disappointed. I was bitterly disappointed. I was bitterly disappointed by the news. It's very cold now. Look, the correct expression is bitterly cold. So it will be it's bitterly cold now. If it's so cold, it's bitterly cold now. I'm almost trembling. It's bitterly cold now. It was very cold there. It was bitterly cold there. It was bitterly cold there. Bitterly cold. It's bitterly cold now. It was bitterly cold there. And there is one more very natural expression. Instead of really regret, we can say bitterly regret. Bitterly regret. If we really regret something so much. I really regret it. So regret something without a preposition here. I bitterly regret it. I bitterly regret it. Or you can also say I deeply regret it. But bitterly sounds stronger. I bitterly regret it. I really regret my decision. So, if I'm going to highlight it, and to sound more advanced, we can say I bitterly regret my decision. Regret something. I bitterly regret my decision. So, as we see it here, bitterly regret. I bitterly regret it. I bitterly regret my decision. So, what's the key to success? You just need to know. These 150 collocations which can be used instead of this very, overused word very to sound like an advanced English speaker, and other people, hear these expressions, they'll think, or maybe they'll say, maybe they'll exclaim, oh, your English sounds really great. So maybe you're highly talented. You're a highly talented English learner, or something like that. So you see, the expressions are really useful, and it's vitally important to know all of them.